Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Links Golf Podcast. I wanted to start by briefly telling you guys about the Landings Golf and Athletic Club. It's just 12 miles from Savannah, Georgia, but really feels a world away. You're in your own world when you're living at the Landings. A little bit about what makes this club unique: 6 golf courses, 2 designed by Arnold Palmer. By the numbers, we got 31 tennis courts, all the tennis you want to play, 15 pickleball courts, 8 bocce, 10 dining options in 4 clubhouses, 5 pools, and a gigantic 52,000 square foot wellness center. If you want to learn more about what makes the Landings a fun, personally rewarding, and fulfilling place to live your life or have your second home and play, again, 6 different championship golf courses. One of those, the Deer Creek course, is a host to a Corn Ferry Tour event that happens at the end of March. So a truly tournament-tested course along with 5 other really great layouts. Visit thelandings.com/golf to learn more. I'm Al Lunsford. This is the Links Golf Podcast. Thank you for listening to another episode. Welcome back to the Links Golf Podcast. I am digital editor Al Lunsford with Links, with Joe Passoff, my co-host. Beau Welling joins us today, fresh off the plane from Italy. Why he was in Italy, there was another big event going on there recently, as many people know, which is one of the many hats that Mr. Welling wears among creating fantasy golf holes, real golf holes, and being the president of the World Curling Federation. So the Olympic Games just concluded. Beau's back after being in attendance there. So if people didn't know, they may know your name from golf, but maybe didn't know much about your curling background. I know we've covered it here on the podcast, but welcome back. Thanks for joining us, and look forward to hearing about the Olympics. But how was your trip?
Yeah, I mean, Al, Joe, great to be on. Great to see you guys. The trip was amazing. It was I was there for about 20 days. No, sorry, longer than that. I was there for 24 days, which is probably the longest I've been in one place in 20 years, kind of thing. But it was pretty amazing. The curling was up in Cortina, so the 2026 Olympic Winter Games, Milano Cortina, was really, the games are spread out over about 5 different clusters, and with activity in Milan and Cortina probably being the 2 biggest clusters. But we were in Cortina, which is about a 5-hour drive from Milan. It's up in the Dolomites. It's incredible. Panoramic landscape that almost looks AI, generated kind of thing. It's just absolutely spectacular. It dumped, 2 different massive snowstorms while we were there, and it really felt like the winter came to the Winter Olympics. And from a curling standpoint, we curled 19 straight days and gave out 3 medals. So mixed doubles, and then the traditional game of men's fours and women's fours. So we're the longest sport there, and then we start 2 days before the opening ceremonies and go all the way to the closing ceremonies. So a lot of curling, but it was really, really special. Our venue was the original stadium for the 1956 Olympic Winter Games, where the opening ceremony was in 1956. And it had been repurposed into this venue that we're able to take advantage of. So, it had a real sense of place, a sense of history with all these old wooden bleachers and things. And it was just really, really spectacular competition, and I couldn't be more thrilled. I think the exposure that the sport has gotten throughout the world, every Olympics is big, but I think it also feels like it's increasing every Winter Olympics. And this felt like it almost went through the roof. And the amount of people that I had reaching out to me saying, I know you've been talking about curling for 20 years, but I really actually took notice of it this year. It's amazing. It's just unbelievable. So we were super excited. We're super tired because it was a lot, and need to recharge the batteries here a little bit because we had the Paralympics starting back up in the early part of March. So in addition to being World Curling Federation, in addition to being the International Federation for able-bodied curling. We're also the federation for the para curling. So wheelchair curling starts in early March. So it's wonderful. Always great to get home. I miss my wife very much, even though she came for part of the competition. It was certainly nice to get home last night.
Yeah,
So,
obviously, let's keep the momentum going with that into the Paralympic Games. Had the United States win a silver medal in mixed doubles, so that certainly helped the cause for people's interest here. And yeah, I loved the all the players being. I don't know if they were mic'd up or if just like the level of access with the cameras allowed you to hear every
Yeah.
conversation. That was just fascinating to
Yeah. So we
kind of
mic all
learn
the
the game
we,
that
we
way.
do mic all the players, and it actually creates some complexity in terms of our broadcast, in that it's a lot of sound to be mixed in and dealt with from a technical standpoint. But it's a big part of the presentation of curling, of helping the viewer understand like what they're thinking through and sort of the strategic choices that they're making. It'd be not too dissimilar how sometimes it's fascinating to watch, listen to a caddy and a player kind of talk through what they're thinking about and considering. But as you mentioned, Al, the U.S. did win the silver medal in mixed doubles. And even though as World Curling president, I'm agnostic about who wins games. Corey Thesey and Corey Dropkin, I've known since they were junior curlers, and so I have to admit it was pretty daggum special to watch them be on that podium at the end of that competition. And I was fortunate enough to be part of the victory ceremony in helping with the give out the medals and the gifts. And I'm sure I'll probably get some. I'm sure I probably violated some sort of protocol, but I just couldn't help but um, give them the three of us sort of had this group hug as a part of that whole thing. And I'm just so proud of those kids of what they've done and how they've represented the sport and represented the United States. And that was pretty special. But Sweden won and played just absolutely fantastic there at the end. And the men's and women's competition had some really incredible curling with, we had on the men's side, Canada, Great Britain, and Switzerland medaled, and on the women's side, it was Sweden again, and Switzerland again, and Canada again. And so that was really great to have all these different countries participate in such incredible curling. And Italy, the hometown team, won the bronze in the mixed doubles. So it was really dramatic and special to be there. And it's a lot of time you put in, and it's a lot of time in the last 3 weeks, but it's very, very rewarding right now of feeling you're involved in something that is so unique and so special. And I'm just glad the world got to witness, this sport and culture of people that I am so personally in love with and passionate about. And yeah, I just don't cloud nine about the whole thing.
Yeah. Joe, get in there on curling. I think I still
yeah,
got
I had to because obviously sports and media love controversy,
Sure.
and curling was elevated in this Olympic Games. We had an allegation of not playing fair. I believe Sweden directing it at Canada.
double
Regardless
touching.
of how that was resolved. Beau, can you point to the concept was I'm accusing you of double touching the the rock, the curling stone.
Sure.
So can you say what advantage might that have? And for golfers, can you give a golf equivalent of the situation?
Sure. So to back up a little bit, like golf or like the origins of golf, curling very much is a game of integrity, honor, values, and you call your own foul. So we have umpires in curling, and they're trained, highly trained, but they're not really empowered to come make a call like you would have in football or basketball or soccer. They're really there more to advise the players about the rules. If the players are meant to adjudicate the rules between themselves. And we're increasingly having issues as the stakes, if you will, of this gotten higher and higher, of what happens if there is a foul and a player or a team doesn't call that foul on themselves, like there really isn't a system for that to be adjudicated. It's supposed to be worked out between the two teams. And so what happens though if it isn't? And so we, prior to this Olympic so-called controversy, we've been down a path of trying to, one, implement technology to help make this easier, and then two, looking at lifting our umpires up into having more say and more power, if you will. But that's a big cultural change. And so like that's the kind of thing we're just not going to change overnight, because it means players have to be willing to accept decisions of an umpire. Umpires have to be confident to make decisions, and we have to make sure that good decisions are being made. And so we're sort of in a process of sort of looking through all that. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that we implemented for this Winter Games is we put a piece of technology in the stone such that when you deliver the stone, you have to let it go by a certain line, which is known as the hog line. And we've had increasing issues with players getting right up to the hog line, and in some cases going across the hog line, but maybe not realizing they'd done that, but yet the other team does. And in the past, we can put officials on the hog line, but it's a lot of cost to do that. And so in the event, we now have a chip, in essence, in the stone that we know whether the hand is in contact with the handle on the stone at the hog line. And we're really excited about this. I mean, this is a big improvement of us. It's like, in essence, it automates this issue of a hog line infraction. What happened, or the allegation of what happened in this particular game, is there was a belief that the granite of the stone was being touched after the handle had been released, which is against the rules. And so this one Swedish team pointed that out to the Canadian team, and the dispute sort of happened. And so, there isn't really this mechanism, though, for us, our umpires, to really go in and resolve that. And it's supposed to be something that's worked out between players. And so that's something we're going to have to look at, continue to look at. I think our role at World Curling was like just to inform the teams of what the rules are. It's a certain code of conduct that we have. And so a warning was issued to the Canadian team over language. And it would kind of be the situation that if another situation happened, like there are consequences in our rule book of what happens after you've had this initial warning. So that sort of happened. So then we spent some time with teams sort of going back through the rules, make sure everybody understood what the rules were saying. And for a brief period of time, we put officials on these hog lines to observe stones, and additional stones were removed from play after observations were made. But we ultimately, in consultation with the different Olympic committees, decided to go back to the normal standard of where the umpires are on the sheet of ice and let the system sort of adjudicate itself. And so it ultimately calmed down. And I think the unfortunate thing, to your original question, Joe, is, and it's no offense to you guys in the media, but like there definitely was this stirring of the pot over the whole issue. And I think in particular, what we didn't like was the use of the word cheating in many, many headlines. I think it would be more akin to an infraction of, you travel in basketball, you have a foot fault in tennis. It's just further complicated by, though, that there's not an official actually making that determination. It's supposed to be on your own. So in any event, the question, the analogy I think you asked for, a metaphor, maybe a comparison to golf, would be, let's say that you've addressed the ball and the ball moves, and you don't see that the ball moved, but your playing partner does see that the ball moves. Then what happens if you don't agree? And I think in golf we have committees and things that can sort of help to adjudicate those sort of decisions. At one point in golf, the tour at least, we started having all this video review of stuff, but I think we've kind of moved away from that in golf because certain players are on camera more than other players. Like that level is not the same. And so I think the immediate reaction back in Cortina was, we need to start having video review. But I don't think that's really where we'd like to see it head, because I'm not sure that actually solves it. And the cost of all that is a lot. So I think we're going to increasingly look at more technology sort of solutions, but there's no question I think we're going to have more of a situation where our umpires are going to be able to step in and sort of make decisions. The net of the whole thing, though, I tend to be in this camp of no such thing as bad publicity, and I think that we have more eyeballs on curling because of this, and I think that's a good thing. And I'm sure some traditionalists in curling might not say that, but I think we're trying to hold on macro to what makes the sport so awesome and special, but at the same time adapt it to modern expectations and whatnot. And so I don't see a near-term day where curlers are still not calling their own fouls, but I do see a day where maybe there's a resource, whether that's an umpire stepping in to say, I saw this, or some version of some sort of review, or more likely some additional technology or camera scanning of some way, shape, or form, so that it becomes more of an automated type thing. It's almost like in golf where like sometimes the rules official's there to advise the player to make the proper decision about where they drop or what they do. It's still the player responsibility to do that. So we'll see. It's a long-winded answer. Did I answer your question?
Well, you're going to have to change this to the Links Curling podcast.
That's right.
I was going to say there really are parallels, though, and not just the one that made most sense, which you elaborated on, Beau. But golf was a niche sport for a long time with a lot of esoteric rules. And as golf became more popular and there was more investment, both engagement from players and viewers, and then companies that wanted to get involved, and wow, golf is this great game. And it just became more important in a worldwide kind of way. And so here we are with curling. It did move the needle, this controversy, but I should tune in for that. This is interesting to me. What's all the fuss about?
Yeah, exactly. And I think we don't have to keep talking about curling, but I think the other thing that golf has had a whole lot of equipment standards and specifications and USGA R&A setting those specifications for equipment, reviewing those equipment. How do you enforce all of that? And I think in curling, we're starting to have, in a very small sense, some same issues with equipment, especially relates to our brooms, our brushes. And what's been interesting is that the USGA has actually done several calls with us to help advise us about how to set up systems and protocols and whatnot. And they've really become the leader in sport equipment specification because they've had to deal with this. To your point, as golf becomes such a big deal, this has become a much bigger deal because the stakes of everything are so high. And so I think that's just sort of interesting that that they have that expertise and are willing to share that, not just with curling, but with other sports as well. They're dealing with equipment specification issues of how do you write specifications. And with equipment, like what's becoming increasingly a big deal is what they call dynamic specifications. So like what happens as equipment is manufactured, the equipment itself is changing through time, through use, and sort of what happens. And so anyway, all that's been an interesting sort of another parallel, I think, between golf and curling. I like to say I'm long Scottish sports, so both H is Scottish sports. So I'm all in on Scottish sports.
My last thing before we leave the Olympics, and then we'll go on to the rest of it. Did you attend any big events, outside of curling, and did you find yourself fascinated by any other sport that you weren't previously?
Yeah. So there's 7 Winter Olympic sports, and together we're all part of an organization known as WOLF, Winter Olympic Federations, and we're actually that's the body that actually interfaces with the IOC on sort of the business side of putting on the Winter Olympics. And so we had the beginning of February, before the opening ceremonies, we had the IOC session. So all the Winter Olympic sports were there, all the Summer Olympic sports are there, all the IOC members, executive board of the IOC, and many of the National Olympic Committees there for a big meeting. And they do these sessions a couple times a year. So I was in Milan for that. And as a part of that, we did some additional work with IOC and these 7 sports. But before I went up to Cortina, I did go and spend some time with our friends at at the International Ice Hockey Federation. I saw the opening of some of the hockey events. I went and spent some time with our friends at the International Skating Union, so I saw the team figure skating event. Once in Cortina, and I was in Milan for the opening ceremonies as well, even though we had started curling in Cortina already. But once I got to Cortina, in Cortina was the women's alpine events, as well as all the sliding events, so luge, bobsleigh, and skeleton. And so I did make it up to the women's alpine, the downhill when unfortunately Lindsay had her accident. And I did get by some luge competition as well as some bobsleigh competition. The sliding track was really right next to the curling center, so that was kind of an easier thing to do, and spent time with our friends at all those international federations. So the one sport I didn't make it to of the seven was biathlon. And I really wanted to get over because it wasn't too far. It's about an hour and a half from where we were, but we're just so full and busy. It was hard to do that. But each sport is, to me, really magical. And especially once you have these relationships that we now have, or I have with these other federation people and presidents, to be able to see their sport through their eyes. And you just learn, by me, I'm a learner. And so I love to learn. And so it's just an incredible opportunity. And I mean, I could go on and talk for hours about all the sliding track stuff and how technical that is and all the stuff that they're doing. And then you get into the detail of figure skating is one that I feel like I've learned so much more about than I had any clue about. It's been totally fascinating. So it's there's something super special, I think, about the Winter Olympics. I mean, all the Summer Olympics is neat and special too, but I think there's something about the identity of all these things on snow and ice, and it's in this unique environments, and it's just something that's really, really cool. So I had an amazing time, and was glad I was able to get out of the curling rink a little bit to go see some of the other stuff.
Awesome. Awesome. So let's transition to golf on our golf podcast. I want to talk, you have a lot of projects going on. One of the most recent things that is adjacent to what your normal job is, but related specifically to the technology and the virtual reality side of things, TGL, you're very involved there, both with the design of golf holes and also the design. I actually didn't know this until I saw a video with you in it, the design of the green complex. And most recently, we had a new hole get debuted last night, Caverns. Did you watch the guys take on your new hole?
Unfortunately, I was flying back from Italy, so I didn't get to see it. They're going to play it again tonight. It'll be the 15th hole tonight, and so I'm try to check that out. I think Keegan and Ricky Fowler are going to be head to head on Caverns tonight, so I'll try to check that out. But yeah, we've been involved with TGL since the very, very beginning, and it's been a really neat and different process for us. So we were originally brought on as the golf design voice on the team to deal with what's now known as the green zone, which is the real life part of TGL, or the in-person part. So it's the green that have the ability to modulate the contours, and it's on a turntable that spins around. And so we were involved in that. And there are multiple times where I thought, there's no way this is going to work and this is going to happen. It just felt so crazy, but it was really special because they had a lot of really smart people, not us, but a lot of other people really smart on the team trying to figure this out. And it was a true sense of team, of people working together. And it was kind of fun because this had never been done before. And so somebody would have a light bulb idea, and all of a sudden you realize that was the way to get around whatever the problem was we're having. So we did all that. And for season one, we were involved in about a third of the virtual holes that then link up to the green zone. And then we learned a bunch from season one. And I think that's another fascinating thing about TGL is they're collecting all this data. So we're able to have sort of data-driven decisions. And so we did a pretty big expansion of the green zone, basically rebuilt the entirety of the green zones the green's substantially bigger than it used to be. It's grown about 40% in size, season one to season two. And then the contours have been changed. There's a big step in the green, so we've lowered that. And we've created more pin positions. So they have a lot more tools in the toolkit, so to speak, in terms of setup. And then even on some of the one side of the surrounds, we've made it such that the ball should be able to run up more as opposed to sort of hitting and dying. and we removed a bunker as well. So I think the green set improvements for this year have been great, and we've already seen it in the data in terms of how close they're hitting it, putts being made, all this kind of stuff. But I think in terms of the virtual hole part, I think our approach in season one was I kept wanting these to be like holes that felt like real golf holes as opposed to sort of fantasy golf holes. And in my mind, early on, I thought we should be trying to take advantage of place, but like putting golf holes where you couldn't put them in real life, but be in real life settings. So a hole through Central Park or a hole around the Boston Harbor or something like that. And it was only toward the end that last season that we kind of leaned into this more fantasy stuff, and we had a hole called Quick Draw, which in essence is sort of a channel hole where you can play out over this canyon to a plinth out in the canyon, or you can play around the rim, but you don't have to worry about the real life constraints of like how would you get to that plinth, or how would you mow grass or get equipment there. You can just magically use the virtual world to get there. And I think for season two, we were encouraged to kind of think more into this fantasy realm. I think a lot of the holes that Augie did in season one, everybody really liked, ourselves included. And so we've leaned in more of that in the holes that we've done for season two. And so this one that we're in particular excited about debuted last night, which is called Caverns. It's in a cave. So, here you don't have to worry about the real life consideration of sunlight to grow grass. In this virtual world, we just make that happen. And so, a whole series of stalagmites and stalactites that have to be navigated around, and interesting play on light, being in this cavern and or cave. And so we were real excited to sort of see that it debuted last night. I think the match and maybe was not so much on the line by the time they played it. And I think it'll be more interesting if it is. But in talking to TGL guys today, everybody seemed really pleased with its debut.
I'll try to mix in an image of that when I edit this for video for anyone watching who hasn't seen it. It's really cool. Joe, have you been paying attention to TGL at all? And
somewhat from the architecture standpoint, not as driven by the results, if you will. When we get a Phoenix team, by God, I'm going to be right there. But it has been fun for me to look at that, the balancing of what could very well be a golf hole that's just kind of cool versus pure fantasy. Because when I was a kid, and I think a teenager, there was a good golfer from Minnesota who was an even better artist named Loyal Bud Chapman that did these fantasy golf holes through Wall Street and in the Grand Canyon and elsewhere. And I loved them, just for what they were. And this kind of brings back some of those memories of just how cool architecture is by virtue of, creating something in that vein.
Absolutely. And I get that reference about him very often. And I think that's sort of spot on. And I think, I'm not the biggest technologist in the world. And luckily, Hunter Rigsby on our team has been super involved in this TGL stuff. But the one thing I do believe about technology is I always feel like, for lack of a better term, like 2.0 is always better than 1.0. And I think we have the opportunity to continue to innovate at TGL with what will happen. I'm excited about the women's part of this going forward. I think that's going to be unique and special. And I think the holes, I think we're able to learn like what do people like and sort of marry that up with creativity and evolve all of this. And so I think, Gil's now involved, done a hole or two. And I just think it's the portfolio of holes that's only going to get more interesting and help evolve the product. And, I think if you peel back and look at the data of like who's watching TGL, they're very much hitting their goals and objectives in terms of reaching out to a much younger fan base than sort of traditional televised golf. And obviously it's rapid, it's faster. And I think all that's really good in terms of, evolving golf into the future. And on the flip side of this, we now have people talking more and more about doing simulator type golf as integrated into greenfield golf. And I just think all this is going to continue to evolve, and who knows where it all could go. But I think maybe before we went on air, I was talking, Al, about or most of you about how exciting this time period is, because I feel like innovation in the golf space is very much here, and as a creative, like it's super exciting to kind of think through the possibilities.
Yeah, we've definitely seen a lot of that, and you've been involved in that. And I mean, PGA Frisco is one of the first things that I think of where you talk about how the innovation and is kind of ingrained in the creation of that place. Um, so yeah, you're very much at the forefront of that, which is cool to see, and makes a lot of sense that you would be involved in something like TGL as well. You do have some green grass stuff about to open, a number of either renovation or original work that's coming up the pipeline in 2026. Following that timeline, the first of which that we know that you helped with was the patch, the Augusta Municipal golf course, which looks to open the week after the Masters. I know a little bit more has been revealed about there and the work that's been done, but what can you tell us about the opportunity to do this for the city of Augusta?
Well, I mean, it's just a really special project, and it's the old Augusta Municipal Golf Course, which is affectionately known as the Patch, and um, Scott Benson from my team was super involved in that, and it was neat because I think it's where he grew up playing golf, being an Augusta native, where his high school matches used to be. But I think the ability that Augusta National and the foundation down there and the community come together to really do something for the community is exciting, and it is. Tom Fazio was very involved, and we were involved, and Tiger Woods was involved, and I just think what the end result is going to get debuted, I think people are just going to be blown away. And I think there've been a lot of great, public oriented projects and community oriented projects, around the country. But I think this one's going to be particularly special of really being something foundational for the city or community of Augusta. And I think it'll get used a little bit different way come Masters Week, but for 50 weeks of the year, it's very much going to be a huge positive for that community. And we're just super honored to have the opportunity to play a small part in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I read the other day that it does open for play after the tournament this year, and I know we'll have some. I'm sure they'll have some events during the tournament, but it's really really neat. And so what it is 18 holes of golf, and then a very significant driving range, as well as a big short game areas, some putting greens, put a big Himalayas kind of putting experience. And then Tiger Woods was involved in this 9-hole project called the Loop at the Patch, at short course. And it's really just going to be a wonderful thing. First tee of Augusta has a big presence on campus, and ultimately the Augusta Technical College will have a presence on campus as well. So really a special project, and we're just super honored to be involved.
Yeah, love the idea of keeping it affordable too for members of the community. Even outsiders who go to visit are going to pay less than $100 to play what will now be sort of a world-class facility right there nearby in Augusta. That, like you said, on a week-to-week basis is, the putting green is free, so you'll see people coming out there, and that'll be their first exposure to golf. You have the first tee there. So it's really exciting. Makes a lot of sense for Augusta to be involved. I think that core foundational aspect of keeping it accessible and affordable for the community is going to go a long way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Al, I was struck when I read the press release from Augusta National that mentioned, I think the fees Monday through Thursday for locals was $25.
Right.
And Friday through Sunday was $35. And I'm thinking, okay, the course hasn't even opened yet, and has this jumped into the conversation of the best value in the United States? Without seeing any of the finished product, but knowing who's behind it. Wow. And as you say, for folks to be able to, come into the area, give them a new reason. They're only building like 8 million courses in Aiken and around there, but almost all of that's private. To have something in Augusta and be, a real magnet for people who love good golf and they can afford to play it. This is a really exciting development.
Absolutely.
Yep, and just $15 to play the patch as well as a local. So modest cart fee too. If you're going to get in the cart as well, it's only an additional $10 for that 18-hole course.
It fits so well with, it fits so well with what the Masters does anyway, with their sandwich prices and and the rest of it. It's like, man, okay, if I can get here, I can actually afford to be here. So I think the golf for the public side will fit in beautifully.
Not too long after that, another passion sort of project for you, Beau, would be the reopening of your home course, Greenville Country Club. What did you do there?
Yeah, so I was fortunate to grow up in the Greenville Country Club in Greenville, South Carolina, and we had I learned the game of golf on a par 3 golf course that we had at the main campus alongside the Riverside Golf Course, which is where the main campus, meaning where the swimming pool was, the tennis courts, the big clubhouse. But we also had a separate satellite facility called Chanticleer, which had a Robert Trent Jones designed golf course. I think opened in the '69, and it was a long time member of Golf Digest's top 100 golf course. Certainly when I grew up there playing, it was that. And so it's a great facility to grow up because you like learn the game on the par as a kid. You learn the game on the par 3 course, sort of graduated to Riverside, but then ultimately sort of graduated to this harder, more difficult Chanticleer golf course. And so we got presented the opportunity to how to help them kind of think through some infrastructure issues along the way a few years ago, and that ultimately led to this big project, which was pretty much a big reconstruction of Chanticleer, and we've actually reimagined several things, which is I'm still like hard for me to imagine that this actually got it all approved in one way, having grown up there. But it was always a sort of strong test of golf, and we had a couple holes there that I think technology and modern golf had sort of made obsolete in terms of playing performance. And so we did do a rerouting of several holes around the clubhouse area. And so in any event, it opens, I believe, in late May. And I'm both super excited and at the same time super terrified because, I may have to move town if people show up and they don't like this. It's like this is going to be a problem because I know probably half the members. But I think they're going to love it. And, it was every project in some ways is unique to me because of different people involved and whatnot. But this one was particularly unique in that it's truly like where I grew up playing the game of golf. And so to be able to help kind of think through, reimagining parts of it, it's not something you get to do every day. And then to do that with people that you grew up with and that are now involved in the governance and leadership of the golf course, of the club, was a really, really unique thing. And then, being 10 minutes from where I live, the amount of time I was there and, able to make these visits and, that might be radically shorter than a normal site visit, but like I could do it like, every time I was home, I'm like running out to Chanticleer and it's only for an hour or two. So it's a special place to me. And again, not to keep saying the same thing, but it's really honored to be able to be involved. And I am excited about getting my friends and the members out there to go play it because I think they're going to be blown away. And it's just really special. And just feel very fortunate to be able to have that opportunity.
Oh, in the Golf Digest years, where Chanticleer was ranked very high, there were a lot of golf courses on the list. At the time, the prevailing standard was, I think it's fair to say there was a disproportionate emphasis on challenge, on a test of golf, so to speak. We have moved on from that a little bit. You can't have 400 courses in the top 100, but you can make a golf course as good as it can be and something that reflects preferences of the time. What did you do there that was a bit of a reimagining, but also stayed true to what Chanticleer is?
So I think you're spot on. I mean, I think Chanticleer was and still is remains a very difficult golf course. I mean, there's a lot of penalty strokes around Chanticleer in that it plays along a series of two different rivers or creeks, creek and a river. And it's tight, and it's not the most really long golf course. It's before we did what we did, it was 6,800 yards or something, and but it's hard, like really hard. And I think what we've tried to, when we get involved in existing golf courses or existing asset situations, and we're big into process about how we go about thinking through change, and we start with goals and objectives, and a couple of the goals and objectives of Chanticleer was to try to make it be more accessible for the breadth of the membership, and so that really trying to think through playability and how do you have an experience out there that a higher handicapper might enjoy better than what it was at the time. At the same time, everyone's very proud of its history as being sort of championship golf. I mean, it was known, like when I was growing up as a kid, it's like one of the hardest golf courses in South Carolina, and it's where like serious competition was played, like amateur competition. And so I think this idea of bringing the luster back to Chanticleer was also a big part of our goals and objectives. And so what we did, Joe, is we really looked at we've added some additional teeing ground for sure. We've recalibrated bunkers in some ways, like by the math, there's less sand than there used to be in total, but there are going to be several holes out there where that better player, and there are a handful of tour players that play out there. There's a handful of holes where sand is going to be radically more in play, especially off the tee, than it used to be before. But yet we've removed a lot of sand around greens such that a slower swing speed player is going to have the opportunity to play the ball more on the ground and be able to get to a green or get close to a green, whereas before it's sort of surrounded by sand all the time, and so that really didn't exist. So I think that overall playability and sort of recalibrating to the modern golfer is something. But then the big reimagination thing was really with holes 9 and 18. So 9 was a hole that played, the second shot was like over a pond to sort of a peninsula green. And it never was like an overly long hole, but like when I grew up, you'd hit a good drive and maybe have a 7-iron in, but it's sort of an up and over tee shot. And with where the modern good younger player, they now hit 3-wood off the tee, hit it all the way over the hill, goes all the way down to the front of the pond, and it's a flip wedge over this. And so the hole is sort of neutered in many ways. And then 18 was always a sort of a different kind of hole in that 17 was just one of these classic risk reward par fives. And then you played 18, and it was sort of this anticlimactic thing, and it was like an iron or a 3-wood off the tee and then a wedge again over a pond. And so what we did is we in essence have eliminated the old 18th golf hole and extended old 17 into the space of old 18. So it's much longer. So that risk reward dynamic is still there, but it's with a much longer club in a good player's hand. And then old 9 now plays into where old 18 was. So it's become, a 490-yard par 4, and we've removed a lake and converted it into a stream as the green's on the stream. And then we've sort of squeezed in a new par 3 that plays down to old 9 green. And so we dropped par. And then we've also reversed the 9s. So what used to be 17 is now 8, and this new hole's new 9. And so old 9 playing into old 18 is new 18. And that's lots of numbers all at once. But the net of all of that is that the finish of both 9s is going to be, I think, much more appropriate to this championship level golf course. And then by dropping par, as well as adding additional length on other holes, we've now we've dropped par and got increased length. So we're over 7,000 yards. And so that effective yardage is actually even more to the dropping of par. And so for that better player, I actually think at the end, what's going to happen is that when it reopens, the really good player, and there are a lot of them out in Chanticleer, they're actually going to think it's harder. But that higher handicapper or middle handicapper or slower swing speed older player is going to find it radically more accessible than it used to be. And I think that will be perceived as a pretty massive win for the entirety of this breadth of the membership, which is a big part of what we're trying to do. The other part of all this is that we've also sort of had a rudimentary sort of turn house grill and then a separate building that operated as basic pro shop and cart storage. And so both of those buildings have been removed, and a new sort of more proper, small but yet intimate clubhouse is being built and constructed. And so I think just take the entirety of Chanticleer. It's gonna feel like Chanticleer still. It still feels like Chanticleer that I grew up, but at the same time, I think it's also going to present as sort of a new experience because it has been adapted in many ways. So when we work on existing stuff, we always like to identify what are the strengths, kind of put those in the lockbox, but identify the weaknesses and try to figure out how do we adapt and change those weaknesses. So I think by holding on to those strengths, it's still very much kind of the character of Chanticleer, but by adjusting certain things I've done a poor job trying to explain to you just now, I think we're going to make that experience substantially greater. We've also removed a lot of turf and replaced that with some native fescue type grasses. And so on steep slopes and banks, and not that it's super in play, but and it's been a decent amount of tree removal as well. And Hurricane Helene helped a lot of that along. So it's actually more tree removal than we had contemplated. But this texture, this layer of this fescue is really going to create a golfy sort of feeling to this. And so again, I'm super excited. They do a lot of tours with the members, and so I feel like people have a real good sense of what all we've done, and they come up to me all the time when I see them downtown and whatever, and they say about how excited they are for getting to May and opening. And I just keep telling them that I hope they're that excited once they have golf clubs in their hands once they go out there. So we'll see. I might be moving to Arizona though if they're not though. So but maybe you got a spare bedroom for me.
Again, at that young age, and I was so fascinated by all of the courses that would make the Golf Digest ranking. And they had some magic in them, some of these unfamiliar places. And when it said Greenville Country Club, in parentheses, Chanticleer, and what's a Chanticleer? No, I grew up in the Northeast. I didn't know what it was. And it unfortunately took me like 20 years to finally look up what a Chanticleer is. And then of course, the Chanticleers made a nice showing in one of the NCAA tournaments.
Right.
But, in any case, just that special association of all the projects you have worked on and will work on. There's nothing quite like doing something at your home club, the one you grew up on. So a special spotlight shining on this one.
Absolutely. I'm excited. So I'm looking forward to getting her open and getting everybody out there. So I'm looking forward to it.
I wanted to get to a couple of original designs that you have that one's close to opening, one maybe later this year. That would be Travis Club in the Hill Country in Texas, and the Hideaway at Lake Oconee, which is a newer project on Lake Oconee in Georgia. Can you talk a little bit about the differences in those environments? And I don't know if you were building them simultaneously or just very close together, but just tell us a little bit about those.
They're kind of offset by about a year.
Okay.
So I kind of go in reverse order. So Hideaway is under construction now, and so it's at Lake Oconee, so down sort of in the Reynolds plethora of golf courses, and many of the founders are people that have got attracted to Lake Oconee by becoming Reynolds members and homeowners, and they kind of got together and just decided they wanted to have their own private club. And it's not meant to be like destination golf. It's more meant to be, true club, and kind of place where you go find your game, find a game once there, and camaraderie amongst people. And it very much reminds me of something from earlier in my career of where town people would get together and kind of go decide they wanted to have a great place in a town and kind of put it together. And you might say, well, Lake Oconee, that's a second home place. But what's happening is that more and more people, not just at Lake Oconee, but like at other second home places around the country, more and more people are making that their permanent home. And so we've got lots and lots of people that are moving to this part of the world, and that's where they're living. And so this is very much trying to be more of almost like an in-town, even though it's not town, club. And so I think there's something really neat about just people wanting us to do this great place. And, I feel like the majority of projects you work on in the modern era of, there's a business reason behind it, whether it's to sell memberships or sell resort rooms or sell real estate, whatever it is. This is just guys, a group of people, guys and gals that want to just have a great place. So that's super exciting. And I'm actually headed down there tomorrow. It's my first stop post Italy tomorrow. So we're working hard to try to get that all grasped this year. And so, we've shaped, half the golf holes and moved earth on the rest of them. And so it's, rapidly moving to, towards conclusion, but we got a lot of work to do over this spring and into the summer. But so I'm super happy and excited about that. And it's the site is like one of these rolling hill type sites, that you can almost point a golf hole in any direction. It's a pretty cool looking golf hole. But there are a couple of unique features on the site in that there are all these huge boulders. And so we spent a whole lot of time trying to utilize these boulders and incorporating them into golf holes and kind of unique thing. And then there's a big sort of macro drainage way going through the site that we've been able to dam up, and we've created two really substantial lake systems that we've got a lot of golf holes interacting with. And it'll be the kind of place when you sit on the clubhouse site, you're going to look out over and see multiple golf holes and these big, huge lakes I'm talking about. And so it's a really, really spectacular kind of setting. It'd been pine, timber sort of forest, and young, like it'd been timbered not too long ago. So the more we open up the site, the more dramatic and special it looks. So that's I'm really excited about the Hideaway. Travis Club is basically done. I'm headed there next week, which is why I'm doing this in reverse order. And it'll probably be one of my final trips prior to opening. We've got all 18 holes grassed, just finishing up the range really right now. But this is a real estate development. It's on Lake Travis, and it's a really substantial parcel of ground. The developer there put two different big ranches together, so it's thousands of acres and pretty low density development in total. But it's hill country, so it's like very dramatic, downhill golf holes and rock escarpments. And we play down to Lake Travis. We got a couple holes touching Lake Travis. We got one hole playing across a finger of Lake Travis to a big peninsula type green. And I'm not a signature hole type person, but like it'll be hard to keep people from not saying the fifth hole at the Travis Club is its signature hole. It's one of those truly iconic kind of par three holes. But the routing there was sort of inherited when we started, but we've made some tweaks and it's really nice. And the holes all, for the most part, sit down in valleys, and the real estate development's up on the hill, the ridges. And so even though it's a real estate golf course, it feels very golf forward. And I think one of our challenges is, as dramatic as the hill country is, it can have some sameness to it. So we've worked really hard to make 18 distinct and different golf holes. And again, obviously I'm biased. I'm excited about our work, but it's a really neat place, and I think it'll be a great addition to the market down there of a really high quality golf offering. And being in hill country in rock, hasn't been the fastest construction. So I think we've been down there working for 2-3 years, and but along the way I've been able to meet a lot of the members and new members and people that are joining, and it's been really interesting to do that and get to know some of these people. And they kind of come from all different walks, because I think Austin's a place where more and more people are moving to. And what's interesting, you've got some really, really good players that have joined that are excited. But like we've also got a bunch of people that have like not been big, huge golfers that have joined. And it's just for whatever reason they're in there where they are in life and wanted to adapt this sort of community kind of lifestyle. and all the offerings outside of golf are going to be truly special with, on the lake and marinas and beach clubs and all the stuff that the development team down there is doing. And it's just a really, really special place. And it definitely could be the kind of place, if I lived in Austin or moved in Austin, I mean, I would live at the Travis Club. I mean, this place is off the charts. Awesome.
Yeah, I was kind of curious. So those two big lake lifestyle environments on different sides of the country just kind of seemed like a similar way about them. But obviously, the Hideaway is something entirely different. Just cool. A lot of those people will just take their boat over, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Quickest route to the course.
Yeah. So what's really cool about Hideaway is many of these people have homes already on the lake, and to get from some of those homes to the Hideaway by car could be like a 30-minute drive. But in a boat, it could be 90 seconds, 2 minutes kind of thing. And so that's going to be really neat. And then I think a whole large number of people are going to access this by boat. And they're going to have a big water taxi system and all this kind of stuff. And so, we spend a lot of time of our, because as you guys know, I think we do planning as well as traditional golf design. And we're always worried and thinking through about like, how do people approach a club, once they park their car or someone parks their car, like what happens and how that all that works. Here's a totally different dynamic, because we got to plan that part, but we also got to plan this boat. What's the flow from a boat or water taxi sort of thing? And it actually creates some other opportunities for us that I think that could be really neat and special. And so in addition to the 18-hole course, we've got this sort of marina lake part, but a really cool short course that plays in amongst all these boulders and whatnot. And it's going to be a really cool place. And one of my childhood friends has joined, and so it's been very interesting to me to see it through the lens of his eyes. And he's one of these ones that's in the process of moving full time from Atlanta out to Lake Oconee. And so it's another little interesting, unique thing of not having a childhood friend be an early adopter member of one of your places, but that's been fun too.
I'm seeing here that the Elvis Presley's typical songs are about 2 to 3 minutes. So,
Yes.
Ode to the King over there, you can listen to an Elvis Presley song on your way to the Hideaway, and
There you
you're
go.
here.
That's it. That's it.
Joe, anything else that is of note that you wanted to talk to Beau about? Wait, I maybe we can end and make that our last question if there's anything we didn't hit on with you that you have going on. But Joe, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I know you've got some other really cool projects involved with TGR. Yeah, almost the subject of another podcast. I understand Stowe up in Vermont will also be reopening. You and I talked about Stowe and Ocean Forest and Peninsula Club, I think, in a linked story I did
Yep.
last year. And Stowe was interesting to me because it's northeast as opposed to southeast. But of course, you were a young collegian up there, and you're fight. What were the brown fighting bears
Yeah, we were there was a big controversy. I was there, Joe. When I enrolled as a freshman, we were the Brown Bruins, and then there was this big debate about should would become the Brown Bears. And Bruin is a bear, and it was one of these deals that the athletic director at the time was wanting to get this decided because there was a new gym to be open and wanted to figure out what to put on the floors, or with the Bruins or the Bears, and supposedly they did some big poll of the athletes, like, what do you want to be or not? And then when the new gym opened, it was bears everywhere. And the guys at the Brown Daily Herald, or all these future New York Times investigative correspondents, somehow figured out the vote, and they found out that the athletes voted for the Bruins, but I think the athletic director wanted to be the Bears. At least that's was the legend at the time. But yeah, the Brown Bears. We're the Brown Bears now. So
well, it had to be fun to be back in New England for a little while.
Yeah.
And
yeah, so Stowe was awesome. I mean, we were long-term involvement there, and a good friend of mine's involved in the development ownership side, and what's so cool about it is it's this old site right in the middle of the Green Mountains that's close to town, and but like all these sort of white pines that kind of grown up through time. So there's been a big clearing and reintroduction of sort of native fescue areas, and we've really taken this sort of tired-ish but cool site and really opened it up and done a full-scale renovation over 2 years. And it's spectacular. I mean, the views and the vistas that you have from anywhere on the property, it's really, really amazing. And it has this really old world New England feel to it now. And I think they're through the moon excited. And it's another one that we've opened 9 holes, and this next nine I think they're going to like even more because we did even more work here on the second nine. So another one to look out for. But we've been fortunate. I mean, we've been busy with TGR down in Mexico at Diamante with the Legacy Club. We've been finishing up Trout National with Mike Trout, the baseball player. Got a really cool TGR project called Marcella in Park City, Utah, that we still have to finish up. So that's been super busy. And Texas remains a really busy place. We've got another new project out there called Freestone that's going to be opening this summer. It's on the country's largest privately owned lake. And then got a couple of big renovations, and Blue Jack Ranch is under construction. So it's a lot going on.
It's amazing that that you juggle as well as you do, but I know you're a bit of a Renaissance guy. You're very capable of handling a lot of big ideas at once, and it's fantastic to see the success that you've had, and continue to stay healthy and busy.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Really
Thanks for
enjoyed
joining us,
talking to you,
Beau.
as always. All right. Appreciate it, guys. Take care.